Hi folks, I want to make a stir fry for lunch today. I have not pre-planned anything that I want to make other than dry brining some tri-tip that I started last night around 8 p.m. It's around noon right now. But I haven't pre-planned what I actually want to make for lunch. And what I often do is I'll look inside my fridge when I want to make a stir fry, see what's available, and kind of just make a garbage style stir fry with whatever I have left over or what's around. So I'll usually go for a protein, a green vegetable, and then anything I have left over that I don't want to throw out, or anything that can give a stir fry like a little bit of a zing. So definitely going to use this tri-tip that I dry brined. I'm going to use these Brussels sprouts, and I'll probably just slice them, julienne them, and then throw them into that stir fry. And then for zing today, I think I'm going to use this kimchi, kind of give it like a Korean style flavor. I'll probably chop this up too and throw it in there. And yeah, I think I'm going to keep it to that. I have some cabbage, leftover lentils. Probably will use a little bit of gochujang sauce. All right, so let's start off with preparing our beef. So like I said, this is tri-tip, and I started dry brining it yesterday. And I wish I would actually have this on film, but I bought like two small steaks, tri-tip steak. I cut them up into, I want to say a little bit bigger than, it was about an inch pieces, right? And what I did after that was I salted everything using I think diamond crystal salt. So a generous amount of salt on everything. And then I added baking soda, and I let it dry brine or cure in the fridge for about 12 hours or so. So if you can look at these pieces, they kind of look a little bit dried out, which would seem like that's bad, but it's actually pretty good, because what happens when you let the beef rest in the fridge and dry out a little bit with the salt and the baking soda is that the muscle fibers actually loosen, right? So when they loosen, whatever liquid or sauce that they're in, they can actually retain that liquid better, and it makes for a juicier piece of meat. So it's almost like if you were to think about like a towel, right? Before the dry brining, the muscle fibers are tight like this, right? And during that dry brining process, they're actually loosening up a bit. And if you ever have wrung out a towel, you know that you could probably retain more water if you're loose like this versus very tightly wound like this. So that's basically what the dry brining process is doing. And then the baking soda piece, that actually is kind of degrading the surface a little bit, so that it's a little bit more rough, there's a little bit more surface area. And when you actually sear this before you braise it a little bit, you're going to get a nice sear, a nice crust on here, better than you would otherwise. So I'll show you how I'm going to brown this or sear this, and how I'm going to quickly braise it to then throw into the stir fry that I'm making. So I'm going to use my Instapot to do the pressure cooking, or the quick braise that I want to do with the beef after searing it, because this is just much faster than trying to braise on the stove with liquid. I want to say it'll reduce the time by at least 2/3 when you do it in here versus doing it on the stove. So what I'm going to do is first sear the beef. So if you have a Instapot, you can use this saute function. It'll say 30 automatically. Leave it at 30. We're only going to sear for about, maybe 5-10 minutes at most. So you want to let this come up to let it get pretty hot, right? So leave it there for like 2-3 minutes. After that, you'll want to put oil inside the inner pot here, so that you can begin the searing process. All right, so I've let the Instapot heat up for about 3 or so minutes. It says hot now, which usually means it's a good time to throw in the oil that you want to use. So again, I said I'm going to use some 100% avocado oil, good for high heat all-purpose cooking. And you'll want to add enough oil so that it's covering all areas of the bottom of the pot. So your meat can come into contact with the oil as it cooks and sears within the Instapot. All right, so I'm gonna put the beef in the Instapot. Gonna use mostly this outside area where there's a larger amount of oil versus that inside I was talking about before. I could throw all of this beef in at one time, but if I do that, I'll probably lower the temperature of the surface area of the pot and the oil because the beef is still relatively cold. I probably should have I should have taken it out about an hour before I want it to cook so it could come to room temperature. It actually affects how the beef will sear, how it will taste, but I'm trying to make this within an hour or so. Yeah, I'll put in half of the beef and I will just let it sear. It's off to kind of a slow start. You should hear more sizzle when you actually put the beef in, so probably means I should have let the oil heat up for a longer amount of time. But we will come back when this is nicely seared and then we'll throw in that second batch. All right, so we're starting to get some browning on the meat. So you can see it's starting to have a good nice sear. I'll pick a piece that actually looks pretty good so far. So the focus on my phone is not the best, but you can see this piece, it's starting to get like browner than usual around the edge versus like a piece like this where it's gray, but it hasn't fully seared yet. So I'll turn this one over. You'll see, oh, actually this one has a great sear so far on the other side. So I'll try to get all of these to have a little bit more dark browning because this brown stuff right here that's flavor. That's what gives you some dark, deep, rich flavors in your stir fry. So I'll finish off this batch, take it out, reserve it, and then throw in the other batch, and then we'll start the braising process in the Instapot. That second batch is still cooking, but while it is, I just wanted to give a closer view of what a good sear looks like. So again, you'll see some spots still have a little bit of gray, but overall, you got a nice amount of brown on the beef right here. And this is the kind of sear that you should look for whenever you're trying to braise a meat before it actually starts that slow cook or pressure cook process. So I'll do this same exact process with bigger pieces of meat when I'm making a stew. Because again, these brown bits, they equal flavor. So you're always gonna wanna brown your meat before you throw it into a stew, a braise, sometimes even a soup to get that extra like umami flavor. So the second batch is just about done. So what I'm gonna do, so this doesn't overcook, is Instapot still says hot. So I'm gonna hit cancel so that the saute function is no longer being used. It'll still cook because the bottom of that pot is still pretty hot. And I'm gonna add back in that first batch of meat and then get ready to actually braise this, or pressure cook it, I should say, because that's technically what we're doing. So in order to pressure cook in the Instapot, you need at least a cup of liquid. So I'm gonna do a mixture of beef broth and rice wine vinegar. So I can give it a little bit of zing. We're gonna get that zing, like I said before, or when I say zing, I mean like acidity. We're gonna get it from the kimchi as well because it's fermented, but I'll put in a little bit of rice vinegar just to kick it up a little bit. So I'm using just like a store-bought beef broth because I haven't made my own with bones. I'm gonna add mostly beef broth, and then I'm gonna add a little bit again of the rice vinegar. It's the same brand that you see a lot of the Kikkoman soy sauce when you go to a Chinese restaurant or get sushi. So add a little bit there as well. Just give me about a cup of liquid, and I'm gonna add it in now. Doesn't look like a lot, but Instapot doesn't need a lot of liquid to bring everything up to your pressure. So there's not much brown bits at the bottom of the pot, but the little that there is, I'm actually trying to get it, scrape those up so that they can become part of whatever sauce is left over, and I'll throw that in. I'll throw that right into the stir fry as well. So, okay, so now what we're gonna do is I will probably pressure cook this for about 10 minutes. There's low pressure, high pressure. I usually use high pressure for meat. Let's do 10 minutes. Cover your Instapot, lock it, seal it so that the evaporation doesn't come out of this valve. And then, yeah, it'll come to a pressure cook, and it will cook for about 10 minutes. And while that's happening, that's when I'm going to chop up my my vegetables and get that part of the stir fry going. So I have a couple things I need to chop or dice. So I'm going to do an onion, some store-bought garlic that I got pre-peeled because I'm super lazy, and then the Brussels sprouts as well. So I'll do that while the beef is pressure cooking. For an onion, I used half of this already, so that's why I didn't have to peel it. A neat trick I learned from just watching some other YouTube videos on cooking is kind of make slits in the top of the onion, like so, right? Turn it to the side. Do this very slowly so you don't cut yourself. Slice down the middle, and then just makes it easier to cross cut perpendicular from those initial cuts, the onion. When you get to the end like this, where you get really close to your hands, you just turn that over and chop as well. And I'll do a little bit of a additional rough chop right there. And this is pretty much chopped to my liking. My mom gave me this a couple of years ago. I think this is used for bakers to scrape off dough off a cutting board. I like to use it for vegetables, so I just spend a ton of time trying to take those off the cutting board. All right, so next I'll move to the garlic. Use a handful of cloves. If I were to peel this, rather than buying store-bought garlic that's already peeled, the flavor of the garlic would be better. But again, I said I'm lazy, so I'm not gonna actually peel garlic for this meal. But I'm gonna chop off the sides where the garlic was attached to the bowl. Put them to the sides. Those are a little bit tougher, and I don't want to eat those. Right. Okay, so then I have 6 pieces of garlic right here. What I like to do is put your knife on top of the garlic. Just press it down and it smashes it. Makes it easier to chop or mince, or I don't know. I don't use these terms correctly. All right, that beeping you heard in the background, that was the Instapot saying that it was up to pressure to start pressure cooking. And then, yeah, I'll just give this a rough kind of dice, nothing special. All right, so I'm done kind of dicing this the way I wanted. If you notice, I was using the back edge of my knife to kind of pull the garlic or pilot it in the middle. It's because if you could do it with this, with the sharp edge as well, but then you're going to dull your knife and you're going to keep sharpening your knives every time you have to use them. So it's better to use the blunt side. And again, I'll use this instrument. I forget what it's called, but I'll just put my ingredients in the bowl on the side. Have my onions in the bowl as well, and then I'll put this in the compost. And the last part of all of this is kind of just chopping up these Brussels sprouts. I think I said initially I was going to julienne them. I don't know why I said that. I don't know how to do it properly. I know what it is, but I'm just going to chop these so that they're just big enough but not small enough to be I don't know, a main component of the stir fry. So put all these to the side. Similar to that garlic, I'm going to chop off the part of the Brussels sprout that was attached to the stalk. And then you can cut these down the middle so that it's flat. Whenever you have something flat in your cutting board, it's not rolling around, it's safer. I'll just do that. You could also, I forgot to take the edges off of these. I'll take it off now. Just put them to the side, I'll get rid of them later. But you could make a bunch of flat ones at the same time. That way you can just be a little bit more efficient with how you're going about chopping on the cutting board. All right, so my cutting board is getting pretty messy, so I'm just gonna remove the stuff that I chopped up already, transfer it to a bowl just so I have a little bit more room to work with on the cutting board itself. Otherwise, it kind of gets pretty unwieldy to keep moving stuff around like I was and continuing to chop. How accidents happen is how cutting yourself and needing a bandage, or you need to go to the hospital, worst case scenarios. I constantly remind myself to keep things neat and clean to the best of my ability while I'm actually working on the cutting board. All right, and last but not least, I'm gonna chop up some of this kimchi that I got yesterday to put it in the stir fry as well, because I think it's pretty big chunks. And you take it right out of the jar. So take some, maybe like a cup and a half. I can always add some more later if I want to. Actually a little bit, probably like 2 cups at this point. Some awesome juice in there that I actually might throw in with the leftover beef kind of stock that's in the Instant Pot right now. Probably make a nice sauce at the end. But it's gonna have a nice rough chop, just like everything else. That's the nice thing about stir fries. It doesn't have to be perfect. As long as things just mix well together, and the flavors that you like, that's all that matters. All right, cool. I'll put this in a separate container as well. All right, so there you have it. I have my kimchi, my garlic, my onion, and then my beautiful Brussels sprouts as well. All right, and then that second beat means that the beef is done. So I'm gonna fast release it right now, and then we can get started with the actual cooking part. All right, so I just heard the 2 beeps on the Instant Pot, and I see L here, which means it's done. That means it's just kind of in the warming stages right now. So you can you can spend like waiting about 10-15 minutes for this to slow release the pressure that's built up inside the Instant Pot. I'm gonna do a fast release, which is when you open the valve and a bunch of steam comes out. So I'll open this up right here. While the Instant Pot's still releasing pressure, I'm gonna put my kind of fake European style wok on the stove, turn up to high heat, and same thing with the pot inside the Instant Pot. I'm gonna let this get real hot, and then I'll add in my oil. Again, I'm gonna use probably avocado mostly. I'll throw in maybe a little bit of sesame, and then I will start the cooking process of the vegetables. All right, so the pressure is all released. Turn this. Put your Instant Pot lid on the side. So this looks done. You see it's still cooking a little bit. I will likely just leave it in here until I need to transfer it right over into the wok. But yeah, this should be a little bit more tender than it was previously because it spent about 10 minutes in the Instant Pot pressure cooking. All right, so this has been heating up for about 2 minutes or so. I'm gonna check if it's ready for oil by just throwing in a couple dabs of water. You'll see the kind of water scatters around. which usually means that this is hot enough to put oil in. You want to make sure that any water is in here, let it evaporate or take it out before you actually put your oil in here. Otherwise, this is going to pop in your face, and it's not going to be too fun. So I'll just do that. The water come out. I'm going to use the same avocado oil as before. Give it a nice. I'm actually at the end of my avocado oil, so I'm just going to use all of this. All right. You don't have to wait too long for the oil to heat up. You'll see it shimmers a little bit. When the shimmering is just about done, that's when you can throw in your ingredients. So I'll start off with my onions to let them get a little translucent. So they start to sizzle almost immediately. I'm not gonna cook the onions just by themselves for too long. I just want them to sweat a little bit, look a little translucent, and that's when I'll start adding in additional ingredients. So I'm going to throw in a little bit of salt, because you want to salt everything as you go. But I'm going to be careful because I know some of the sauces I'm going to add in at the end, they already have salt in them, and I don't want to over salt the dish by having it be seasoned correctly with the salt, and then adding the sauce in with additional salt, and then you just gotta have a salty mess, and it's really hard to fix that. So throw in like maybe half of that, a little bit more than half. Some cracked pepper as well. If you want to throw in any green herbs, now is the time to do so that they can kind of let out their herby perfumes, herby flavors in here. If you do this at the end, you'll still get a little bit of flavor, but not as much as if they were sweating out in the oil itself. So I have some cilantro, some dry cilantro I'll throw in there. So these are starting to brown a little bit, and I don't want them to brown fully or too much. So now is when I'm going to throw in the garlic. Give that a little bit of a sweat before I throw in the Brussels sprouts. All right, I'm starting to see some brown on the garlic as well, so I'm going to throw in my third ingredient, which is the Brussels sprouts. I'm going to do a good amount, just so it's a nice and hearty meal. So I'm not going to put all of it in, but a decent amount. I want to mix everything together. Okay, I've cooked this for about 2-3 minutes or so. It's sweating. I'm starting to sweat, so I'm gonna transfer in the beef right now. I got this nice beef from the Instapot. A little bit of liquid is going in, but I'm not gonna pour in all the liquid now, because if I were to, I'd actually start steaming the Brussels sprouts, and I don't want to have a steam kind of stir fry. But you'll see a little bit of liquid going in. That's okay. You just don't want to dump in a bunch of liquid, and you end up with a steamed stir fry. And there are worse things, there are worse sins to commit when you're cooking, but it's not one I want to commit. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Looks like the Brussels sprouts are cooking faster than I thought they would. So I'm going to throw in that kimchi now and mix it in. I'm also going to do a little bit of onion powder. So I like the taste of onion powder, in addition to just the sauteed onions that I did before. And I'll throw in some sesame seed as well. These are not toasted, just regular sesame seeds. It's just starting to cook fast, which that's the wok method. I'm going to lower my flame to low now. Pretty much everything is cooked. We're just warming up the kimchi and All right, I have committed a sin while I've been doing this. I have not tried the food to see how it tastes, salt wise, and I don't want to take beef right now, but salt wise and kind of heat wise, it's good, but it needs a little bit of heat, so I'll add in some more cracked black pepper, and I will add in a little bit of the gochujang sauce now. Okay, that's enough. That's a lot. You know, that other sauce I showed you in the beginning, I shouldn't use this because I put that in my mouth. But just me and my boo eating, so it's fine. I'm not going to add in that soy sauce and hoisin sauce. This is just, I think I'm just going to do just a soy sauce for a little extra salt, but this is more or less done. Right now you're just cooking it to your own liking. Because it's pretty like juicy so far too, I'm not going to add in that beef stock from the Instant Pot. I'll probably just save that for another meal. Maybe that could be liquid for the next pressure cook. And then yeah, I'll probably just add this, a little bit of soy sauce. There you have it, folks. You're gonna have your garbage stir fry, Asian style. You would never see this on a menu anywhere because this is just something I kind of just put together from my fridge. But they'll have some familiar Asian flavors and make a nice lunch. And there you have it. Beef kimchi Brussels sprout stir fry. Still hot, still steaming on the plate, so I'll give it about a minute or so I don't burn myself. But a pretty good, delicious lunch. Something that's pretty easy. I guess the only difficult part of it is kind of thinking you want this the next day so that you can dry brine that meat in the fridge. But it's pretty easy to do. You can do it within like 5 minutes, and you make your meal the next day just so much better. And I'll just give this a quick taste. I'll blow on it so I don't burn myself, and let you know how it is. Oops, a piece fell off, but woo, hot. It's good. It's sweet. It's salty. I get a little bit of heat from the gochujang. I actually want a little bit more heat, so I probably will add some cayenne pepper to this, but pretty delicious. Yeah, pretty easy to make, just as long as you have a little bit of forethought. And yeah, I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned a few things, and yeah, have a good rest of your day. Take care.